Welcome to the 3030 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Dr. Ruiz.
Hello everyone, super excited about this episode. My guest is Ratna Singh, founder and CEO of CAR.O.L, the world's first interactive exercise bike powered by artificial intelligence to make fitness short, smart, and scientific. As a serial entrepreneur with international business experience, Ratna noticed a gap in the fitness market for clinically tested, efficient exercise. She co-created the concept of CAR.O.L in response to the inactivity epidemic she observed while running chronic disease management programs after co-founding Integrated Health Partners. Ratna found that the answer to this epidemic was in the science-backed application of high-intensity interval training, more commonly known as HIIT. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello everyone, super excited to be here with my friend Ratna Singh. Ratna, how are you?
I'm super well. Thank you so much. Greetings from a very lovely evening in London, UK.
It's so amazing, how, we were just talking a second ago about I am a pretty positive dude, and yeah, we're quarantined, we're trying to physically distance each other. But here we are, talking to friends and having fun and thinking of ways to improve our communities, our families, our households. What better opportunity that, right now that we have a lot of time in our hands than to start changing behaviors, changing our environment. But, for anyone that's out there that don't know about you, what's your hero story? How'd you end up in this health sphere?
Well, I am absolutely not from the health industry at all. I am actually my own target market. I hate to exercise long and hard, or just long. The traditional forms that are available: gym, spinning, running, jogging. Ugh, no, thank you. Other than the fact that I find that it's I don't have time. I've got children. I've always had a very busy career, but it's also, I just find it dull. It's just mindlessly boring. So this came about as a byproduct of a health project that I was doing as a management consultant in Abu Dhabi, where diabetes was the second highest in the world. And, it's difficult to get people to exercise despite having, amazing gyms. And I studied microbiology at university. And when I started looking into the science of exercise and also behavioral changes studies where they looked at why people don't exercise, it was clear that it was because of time, inconvenience, and boredom. And I'm like, yep, those tick my boxes off as well. And of course, there's a whole bunch of people who will never exercise no matter what. Even if you take away all of those barriers, they just won't exercise. But there is a large portion that genuinely does not like what's on offer today and would like a shorter but effective option that they can fit into their lives easily. And so when I came across the whole science of high intensity training, I try to do what everybody else probably tries to do. And I got a bike and I got on it and I started, doing the pedaling with intervals. And I was failing abysmally. It was too hard, it was not hard enough. I chained the resistance as I was sprinting, I was sweating. I had heard about Dr. Niels Vollard, who has developed what he calls REHIT. It stands for Reduced Exertion High Intensity Training. It basically shows that 2 20-second sprints at a particular resistance that's tailored to you individually and conducted in a way where you go from 0 to max almost instantly is more effective than anything else that you do as exercise, more effective than jogging, more effective than the type of interval training you're probably doing, because you're probably doing it for more than a few seconds. And the minute you do more than a few seconds, you're not doing proper HIIT, as it were. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I'd heard about Dr. Vollard, so I contacted him, and then he explained to me this whole thing about you can't really use a regular exercise bike because you need to be able to not just generate the right resistance that will take the rider to what's called supramaximal power, which is above and beyond what's generally considered maximum, and take them there instantly. And I thought, okay, so how do I do this? I just could not replicate it on a regular bike. The more I talked to him, the more it became apparent that we had to build our own system and we had to automate the whole thing, because that's the other thing with behavior change. You just not just take away the barriers, but also make it really easy for people to do something. And so what we have is CAR.O.L is an automated, supramaximal, high intensity training system that'll tailor a workout for you. It's going to last a total of 8 minutes, 40 seconds, but you'll really work hard for just 2 20-second sprints. And within those sprints, all the magic that needs to happen happens. And all you have to do is create an account, log in, and ride anywhere in the world. CAR.O.L does everything else. Everything else is automated and timed precisely. So that's what we developed. And then I realized, boy, I can do this. And I thought, if I can do this, many people like me can do this. And so I put all my efforts into creating CAR.O.L, which has been in R&D for years, because we just needed tons and tons of data to refine the algorithms, and we still continue to refine them. But we needed the data, and it's out in the marketplace, and the feedback we're getting is it's really phenomenal, to the point where I just kind of look at myself in the mirror and go, wow, that's so humbling.
When did you get interested in this high return on investment on time versus exercise?
Just my life, my time. And
as an entrepreneur, everything is high ROI.
Well, I've not always been an entrepreneur, although I've been an entrepreneur for a while. I've had more than one startups, but I've always been in very high pressure environments. I guess I just like it that way. I had a 6-week maternity leave with my first child. I went back, and I remember we'd be doing these presentations and the lights would go down and I'd be nodding off. So I like to work, and I like to work hard. And I don't know, I guess I like to do the best in everything that I can be. And that takes up a lot of time. And I don't enjoy exercise. I just deprioritize it, and I just kind of get by on whatever I have to do. But as you get older, and this happened to me as well, all of a sudden, my hormone levels are changing, and I go to the doctor and my insulin is at 11, and he's like, Ratna, this is borderline insulin resistance. You better do something about it. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. I thought, how the hell did that happen to me? So I hit CAR.O.L like a fiend for 4 weeks, and I went back, had my bloods, and my insulin dropped to 4.3.
Wow.
And then he said, there's no sign of insulin resistance anywhere. So, I know it works. And when it works for somebody like me who is slap bang in the center of the target market, and something I can do. I mean, I don't need to shower. I just do it. The other night I did it at 10:30 at night in my bedroom, went to sleep. Took less than 10 minutes. I mean, it's remarkable.
I talk about this a lot. My most difficult patients are the ones that are super ultra, motivated to go work out, and they go out and they are so stressed out, and it's very difficult for me to convince them to cut back on their exercise, because it's a stressor, and they're like running themselves thin, and it's so difficult because you understand in your head that exercise is very important. Everyone knows that you should have exercise in your life. On the other hand, I have a lot of patients that have chronic fatigue or have all of these conditions that prevent them from exercising. And it is this huge mountain to climb to even begin a protocol, to even begin an exercise regimen, because they're tired, they're fatigued. And just imagine having to come from work, you get home, you have to deal with cleaning or whatever, start cooking or whatever, and then on top of that you have to put on your clothes, lace up your shoes, get in your car, go to the gym, do something for 30 minutes, and then go back home, and then you don't feel any benefits. So guidance is just so important.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we all know that exercise is important, right? And so there's no point in telling people it's important. They know that, right? It's a case of, well, how do I do an exercise regime that's going to work for me and my lifestyle? And I think this is where the fitness industry is failing. They keep, giving you equipment that looks beautiful, or they'll give you a bigger screen, or they'll give you an entertaining class, or they'll give you music. All of this is just trying to dull the boredom, where whereas at the end of the day, you still have to put the hours in, right? And you still have to shower, you still have to do this, that, and the other. So it's just the same old, just dressed in a different way. I think what we've done is taken the pyramid of exercise and just turned it on its head. Less is most certainly more, much more. And I'm telling you, if I didn't have Carol in my house now, because, I have 2 children, I have a dog, I have a husband who's very busy, he's a neurologist. During this lockdown, we have to do the cooking, we have to do the cleaning ourselves. And if I didn't have Carol that I could get my exercise done in such a short time, I would not be doing anything, because I'm not going out to do any jogging. I'm certainly not going to log in and do one of those, internet workouts. It's just dull for me. That's the idea. It's just dull. So if it wasn't for Carol, I would be suffering right now from a health perspective.
Let's talk about some of this, ROI. Like, for example, and I'm just going to spit some numbers. If you grab a book and you learn the most common, 200, 300 phrases of any language, you're not going to be able to write a novel. You're not going to be able to publish something, but you'll be able to go to that country and communicate and get around. And how long would it take you to learn those 500 phrases? Maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. If you want to have like a proper conversation with like an attorney or whatever, well, maybe that's going to take you a couple of years. If you want to write a book or get a PhD in that language, that is going to take you 12, 10 years, But communication, can be compressed, and you can learn how to communicate in a different language in a couple of weeks. And that's sort of like what we're talking about. If you want to be a bodybuilder, that's going to take many, many years of training and determination. If you want to maintain a good level of health, this 9-minute workout can be very beneficial.
Yeah, it's more than that, though. There's such a misconception out there that the more you do, the more you sweat, the better it is. Whereas it is not the case. Scientists are now understanding how exercise works, and it's not just about energy expenditure. It's how your molecular pathways change, and the endurance exercise triggers a different metabolic pathway, and high intensity triggers a different metabolic pathway. And so as the American Council on Exercise did, they took Carol and they said too good to be true, and so they tested her against the government guidelines, which are 30 minutes of exercise every day, 5 days a week, which is 150 minutes, versus Carol 3 times a week, less than 10 minutes every time. And the results were so astonishing, everyone was blown away. So every single health parameter that were measured, Carol outperformed by at least twice. So in fitness, the 30-minute group got their fitness level up, measured by VO2 max, by 6%. Carol people did it by 12%. That's twice the improvement in such a short time. But as a government body or as a non-profit organization that influences governments and everyone else, ACE was really interested in what Carol can do to affect the long-term health of people and their ability to mitigate, the usual diseases like cardiovascular, diabetes and stuff. And there is something called a METS Z-score, which each one of us can have by having, various blood measures taken, like glucose, cholesterol, insulin and all those things, as well as fitness, weight to hip ratio, VO2 max, blood pressure, all of that. So all of these health markers go into calculating your risk of getting ill in the future, right? And the idea of exercise and good diet is to reduce that risk. So that's what the government says, that if you do 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week, you will reduce that risk level. And in this study, that's exactly what happened. The risk level dropped by 26%. The Carol group, however, dropped the risk level by 67%.
Wow.
So, when people say it's not, it's a supplement, I say, no, it's not a supplement. It's an absolute replacement and it's better for whatever it is that you're doing. And then they look at me like I'm selling snake oil. It's fine. This is such a radical concept for people to get their head around. It will infiltrate the mainstream eventually, but I cannot change my story. I have the evidence behind it, tremendous amount of independent scientific evidence, and the daily lives of people that I see. I mean, you should see the testimonials. Even an Olympic gold medalist wrote into us to say, as a runner, he hates bikes. The idea of a bike was never important to him, but he decided to give C.A.R.O.L a chance, and he bought C.A.R.O.L. And he says that in all his years of trying every exercise modality on the planet, he says nothing has been as effective as C.A.R.O.L. And it's a central part of his training. And now, obviously, he's retired and he trains other people. He says it's a central part of everyone else's training. So you've got people like those coming out now. And then on the other hand, you have people who just say that this is absolute nonsense. There are no shortcuts. There's no way you can do this. So I just say to them, try it. Give it 8 weeks and see how you feel, measure and see how you feel. And I can guarantee that if they follow the protocol that the American Council tested, they will get those results.
Are you familiar with Tabata, training? Yeah. And one thing that I see a lot, and this drives me insane, because with the Tabata protocol, it's this Dr. Izumi Tabata who developed this as a way to train Olympic athletes. If they were going to travel that day and they didn't have time to do their own workout, they would go in and do a Tabata, and they wanted to look at what is the most effective, shortest way of exercising. The Tabata method is 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. What drives me insane, is that the idea for the study that Dr. Izumi Tabata did this whole research, and discovered this interval training was to do the lowest amount of time with the highest results. And then people take it and they're like, we're going to do 7 Tabatas. 7 of the protocols. It's like, no, that's not how things work,
Yeah.
Because they think more is more,
More is more.
Yeah, and just looking at your protocol, you only have to do it 3 days a week. What would you say to that, type A personality that thinks more is more? What would you say to someone that say, what if I do it 5 times a week?
Trust me, type A personalities, and we've got enough hedge fund managers, we've got enough CEOs, and one particularly very high profile CEO basically said that it's incredible how 20 seconds can exhaust you as much as it does, but you recover fast. And he said that it's harder than, a 20-mile run. I used to run, he said before, now I do this and I find it harder. And so when people understand and do C.A.R.O.L properly, they get that you don't need to do it more than 3 times a week, and you don't want to do it 3 times a week. It is enough, because you do need recovery. And I think once you give people the rationale behind why only 3 times, they get it. Your body, it's all about adaptation. It's about stimulus response. We create stress on your body in 40 seconds. Your body needs to change, and it needs time to change. So once you explain that, people get it. And once they do it, they realize that, I don't want to be doing this every day. And it's interesting what you said about Dr. Tabata, because I used to do Tabata before. When I was, 10 years ago or so. And I swear, I used to, when you have to do it at home, you have to do those burpees and whatever it is. I just didn't do them correctly. I'd take lots of breaks, and it was completely self-guided. And that's where the problem lies. When something is self-guided, you will cheat. And if something has to last long, if you have 20 minutes of pain, that's not good. Yes, we give you pain, but it's 40 seconds of pain. And that's it. You're done and dusted. It's like ripping the plaster off. And the reason why we work in the way that we do is that we take you to what's beyond your maximum, way outside of your comfort zone. And to date, nobody is physically able to hold that max power for more than a fraction of a second. until your power starts to drop, until you're at absolute fatigue in 20 seconds. That's the way the system is designed. And if you can hold that power for more than a split second, then the resistance will just increase next time you come. And see, if any time you can do a high intensity workout for even a minute. People say to me, "Oh, I do these intervals all the time." I said, "Well, how long are your intervals?" "Oh, maybe about a minute." And I said, "Well, you're not doing what we're doing. It's a different modality again, because if you went to supramaximal, it's literally sustainable for a split second. After that, you drop your power."
And that's what drives me insane about this, CrossFit exercises that call for multiple Tabatas. Or if someone, got a hold of CAR.O.L and they said, "Today we're going to do 3 rounds of CAR.O.L." Well, you're not doing it right, because you have to go to that maximum effort. Your maximum effort is going to be completely different than my maximum effort. But how do we gauge that? How do we know what is the maximum effort? What is the feedback mechanism? And if you're able to do 2 or 3 Tabatas, you didn't do it right. You're wasting your time. You're saving energy to do the next one.
Exactly. You have to measure that. Exactly. And that's what we do. We measure, we adjust, we measure, we adjust, so that every time you are on the bike, you will deplete your glycogen. And that's where it all starts. It triggers vast amounts of AMPK. And as you know, that's responsible for your survival and longevity, one of the pathways to survival and longevity. And that's the principle upon which CAR.O.L works. You can deplete, you can trigger AMPK doing other exercise modalities, but they're just going to take longer to do. So it's a pressure cooker way of getting amazing results.
Why don't we dig into that a little bit? Can you tell us about glycogen? Can you tell us about what it is? Why do we need to get rid of it from the liver? Just for anyone that might not be familiar with this.
Sure. So glycogen is stored in many parts of your body. Most of it is stored in your muscles, and obviously it's also stored in your liver. So first of all, glycogen is the storage form of sugar. And you need sugar for energy to, your body, whatever, everything that it's doing inside of you requires sugar. And so it's an essential part of our being, as it were. Now, the glycogen that's stored in your liver can be supplied if you're running low on sugar for energy purposes. So let's say that you got low, you haven't eaten for a while, the sugar is coming out of your glycogen to give you the energy that you need. It's not really coming out of your muscles yet. Your muscles basically store the sugar in order to burn it locally, because they need to be ready to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. It's how we were built as humans from an evolution perspective. We either walked slowly and we looked for food, or we ran the hell away from the tiger to survive. If we had jogged all the time or done what we do now, the exercises like constant, long, we would not have the energy to run away from the tiger. And so as a species, we'd be extinct. So what we're doing is really taking you back to how you are built to survive as humans. So glycogen is stored in all these different places. Now, we use an exercise bike, for 2 reasons. One, it's the safest way to administer this kind of exercise. And secondly, it is also targeting the biggest storage of sugar in your body, which are your thighs. Now, when you burn that amount of glycogen in such a short time, your body just goes into a panic reaction because its energy stores are depleting, right? It could be in danger. It could be eaten by the tiger. And it triggers many other pathways that then go into action. It's like, a bunch of soldiers going out to try and defend the fort, as it were. And it causes the various changes. So it'll make you fitter, certainly, because you need to improve your oxygen carrying and utilizing capacity. Your heart, which is a muscle, will get stronger. And what happens is that you build what's called mitochondria, which are the little power cells in every single part of your body, and they are able to produce more energy, use more oxygen, and the more of them you have, the better energy generator you are, even when you're at rest. You see, when we get older and we don't have as much mitochondria as we did when we were, like kids, that's why our basal metabolic rate goes down. So this increases your basal metabolic rate and just makes you, it upgrades you as a human. It upgrades you. And insulin is a hormone that transports sugar into its storage form. I always think of it like a kitchen, right? You go into a kitchen, you've just bought a bunch of groceries, you're about to open the cupboards to put the new groceries in, but they're already full. So what do? It's the same with sugar in your body. If all your muscles and all your storage places are full, where are you going to put the sugar you just ate? Right? It goes into fat. It turns into fat, which then converts into sugar for energy when you need it. So insulin's role is to push sugar into storage and block fat from being metabolized because it doesn't want more sugar in your body. It's important to burn the sugar in your muscles so that you clear the stores so you can push the fresh sugar in, stop the fat from becoming larger. It's like going into your cupboards, emptying out the shelves and putting the new groceries in. That's the analogy that I use.
The only thing that's beautiful explanation. The only thing that I would add is that sugar is very like sticky and, and inflammatory, and fat is not, it's very stable. So your body would rather have excess fat, even though it's going to create problems in the future. It would rather store fat because it's a little bit more stable than sugar, because sugar can be very reactive. So it's taking the safer pathway. But if you continue making fat and fat and fat and fat, now you can create atherosclerosis. Now you have excess energy. Now you don't look good, in a bikini, So, but yeah, I love your analogy of groceries into the kitchen.
Yeah, and fat, you're right. Fat is also needed. We do need some storage fat because, think of it from an evolutionary perspective. If there is a shortage, if there's a famine and there's hunger for extended periods of time, you do want to be able to have the energy. And so that's when the fat will turn into sugar, which will supply your body with energy. So it's not necessarily an enemy, but exactly like you say, if it just becomes too much, because we do want to store some fat, right? As humans, and it becomes comfortable to store more and more fat, but that's when it's not meant to be. Our sedentary lifestyles are not meant to be the way they are. And that's why we see the problems that we face. And in my humble opinion, if you really don't want to do long exercise because it bores you stupid or whatever it is, just do this, and it'll just get it over with. Or do anything. Just go and do it on your own bike. It may not be as effective as Carol, but, at least you're doing something.
Just a silly question, this is out of curiosity for me, okay? I really, really hate calorie counters on machines. Jumping on a machine for 45 minutes and then it says, "Oh, you burned 700 calories." So now you go to the restaurant and you eat 800 thinking that you deserve it. Correct me if I'm completely out of this world wrong. It's that you probably don't burn that many calories, but you're emptying glycogen, which in turn is more important than the amount of calories that you burn. Am I correct, or am I completely crazy about that?
No, you're completely correct about that. But here's the thing about calories. First of all, if a treadmill is telling you burn 700 calories, it's probably lying because it's a massive, great big estimation, right? It's not going to be exactly correct, which is why we don't give you any calorie measures, because unless it's accurate, we're not going to give it to you. And we are working on measuring what's called afterburn, because we know when you're doing the ride in 40 seconds, you're not burning a lot of energy, right? But it's not the actual energy consumption during the ride that makes you slimmer. What makes you slimmer is what you said just now, which is the better processing of the sugar, so that if you don't have high amounts of insulin in your body, you're going to burn fat for sugar, for energy, right? And you don't want insulin around, or rather insulin isn't going to be sitting around for long if your surface tissues are very sensitive to small amounts of insulin, which shoves the sugar into your muscles, or you just don't have that much sugar around. And so the body, the more efficient you are at processing the sugar in your body, the more likely you are to burn fat for energy. So that's one thing, is how CAR.O.L works. And then the other thing is the afterburn. Now, the same people who did the test on CAR.O.L at Western University in Colorado, Professor Lance Dalek, they measured what's called afterburn, which is how much more are you metabolizing post-exercise, right? How much more oxygen you're consuming after the exercise. And they compared CAR.O.L to, the 30 minutes of medium intensity exercise, and it was twice the afterburn. And the reason for that is that during the exercise, your body is in it demands such high amounts of oxygen and energy that all other processes just shut down. You go into anaerobic exercise and it takes everything out of you, right? And all those other processes that had to be put on hold still have to be, completed. And so you are just metabolizing at a higher rate for a lot longer, twice as high, twice as long. And so we say that you're going to lose fat on CAR.O.L not because of the calories you're burning in 40 seconds, but because of the stronger afterburn, because you improve your insulin sensitivity, which means you process sugar and burn fat more effectively. And three, and this is really important for all kinds of reasons, is that you increase the number of mitochondria you have. And when you have more of those, the more energy you'll burn, and you'll just have much more integrity in your muscles and more integrity in your cells. You become, you're younger.
It's almost like exercise smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exercise really smart, not hard, and just be open to the fact that, listen, come on, could we have flown? Could the Victorians have thought that there'll be airplanes, internet, cellular phones, things happen. There is something called progress and invention and science, and not everything is built on the premise of sweat equals I've worked hard, equals I've burned a lot of calories, equals my exercise has been effective. No, you can go and sit outside on a hot summer's day and you'll start sweating by doing nothing. You sweat because you get hot, not because you've exercised particularly hard,
This has been a fascinating conversation. So, Ratna, how can people learn more about CAR.O.L? How can people get a hold of you, if they have any questions?
Sure. So just go to carolfitai.com, or if you Google CAR.O.L bike, you will pop right up. But if I find spell the website is C for cat, A for Andrew, R for Roger, O for Olivia, L for Lima, F for Freddie, I for India, T for Tommy, A for Andrew, I for India.com. And as you can tell, I'm not my pretty rubbish. I'm sorry if I've gone on a little bit too much, but it kind of gets quite passionate for me. And
anytime I have someone that has deep knowledge in the subject, I geek out too. So this was a very super interesting conversation. Being able to have a different approach to exercise, especially for those people that don't like to exercise, and knowing that maybe we're not meant to long grinding, exercise. Maybe it's almost like evolutionarily we are meant to do something that is short and sweet.
I absolutely. So going back to the way we were meant to be is more effective. And I wouldn't say it's not for people who don't want to exercise. It's for people who want to be healthy, who want to exercise to be healthy, but for whom what's on offer right now just doesn't work. And they want something that's short, that's scientific, that's effective, and it's quantifiable.
And that's the most important thing, that you show results. Well, Ratna, thank you so much for coming to my show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me. I'm really grateful for having me, and I again hope that I didn't kind of bore your listeners or you.
Oh no, this was amazing. Thank you so much.
You have a lovely day and stay safe.
You do too.